The story kicks off in one of the bustling cities, where we hear a group of students chatting away. One of them complains, "I seriously don't get the point of these exams if all anyone wants is to boost their power anyway." His classmate fires back, saying, "Yeah well, not everyone's rich and lucky like you. A lot of us don't get free ability books unless we get into military schools first." The green-haired guy responds smugly, "Then I guess poor people are the lucky ones. I had to buy my ability book at a ridiculous price." But the guy with the cap cuts in, "Still, you got your book earlier than most. That's a huge advantage." Green hair shrugs. "The real lucky ones are the people born with powers. They're called originals, and they're the source of all ability books." As the students talk about how important the originals are, especially since they're the only ones who once stood up to the notorious Dalke clan, we suddenly cut to a mysterious girl with green hair standing still in the middle of the street. She looks like she's waiting for something, or rather someone. That someone turns out to be Rayleigh, one of the most popular students at school, not just because he's good-looking, but because he's also a fourth-tier ability user. She walks up to him and asks politely if he has a moment to talk. When he agrees, she nervously invites him to dinner tonight. While Rayleigh is politely explaining that he's free this evening, something interrupts them. Someone's running toward them fast from the distance, and that someone is our protagonist, Kai. He's dashing down the street, clearly trying to shake off a bunch of bullies who are hot on his trail. Shouting back at them with a grin, he yells, "Not a single one of you cowards is fast enough to catch me." So confident in his speed, he even starts mocking them mid-run, flipping them off without bothering to look ahead. And just as he finally turns his head forward, he's greeted by Rayleigh's unimpressed face. Rayleigh, calm as ever, says with a smirk, "Well, good morning, lil bro." Our protagonist, Kai, is only a first-tier ability user, while Rayleigh is all the way up at tier 4. So naturally, Kai crashes into the ground like a rag doll. The green-haired girl flinches and instinctively steps forward, asking if he's okay. But the moment she gets a closer look at him, she suddenly freezes. Her smile fades as she realizes who it is, the loser from their school. She immediately backs away. Unfortunately, the bullies chasing Kai finally catch up and waste no time beating him down. One of them even taunts, "You still need this finger, or should I snap it for fun?" Rayleigh, meanwhile, notices the girl's expression. She looks terrified. He doesn't know what's scaring her so much, but in his twisted little brain, he assumes it's the sight of Kai's pathetic, bruised-up face. Without warning, Rayleigh channels mana into his hands and casts a long-range spell, launching Kai through the air like a punching bag on fast forward. The surrounding students are stunned by the chaos. One of them blurts out, "Who in their right mind would start a fight on the last day before the military academy entrance exam?" The answer comes loud and clear from Rayleigh himself. He scoffs, calling Kai a useless piece of trash, and warns him to watch where you walk next time, before you run into someone way above your level. The bullies decide there's no fun left in picking on someone already half dead, so they walk away, laughing it off. As for Rayleigh, he tells the girl to leave if she's really that worried about the weakling. Just then, another student shows up late and asks his friends what happened. One of them replies, "That idiot Kai picked a fight with Rayleigh the Menace." He adds, "I don't even know the guy's full name even though he's in our class, but everybody just calls him the useless tier 1 kid." The reason behind all this hate? Simple. Kai hasn't awakened any ability yet. And in this world, students without powers before joining the military academy are treated like garbage. They're bullied, mocked, and completely forgotten. We soon learn that Kai's city has been living under a fragile peace treaty with the Dalke clan, a treaty that's been in place for 5 years, ever since the end of a long and brutal war. But right now, all Kai can think about is getting enough sleep before the academy entrance ceremony tomorrow. After all, that's his only shot at getting a free ability book, and he needs that book, no matter what. Later that night, we see Kai standing in front of the only ability book he owns. But to understand what this book truly means, we need to rewind the clock. 6 years ago, that was when a group of men in dark uniforms knocked on his door. They were from the Special Operations Unit. Kai had no idea who they were at first, until they introduced themselves as the ones responsible for classified military operations. Then came the news that would change his life forever. His parents had both died during their final mission. The officers had searched for any remaining family who might take Kai in, but found no one. Not a single relative. Not even someone willing to adopt him. So the military promised to cover all his expenses until he joined the academy. And before they left, they handed him the only item his parents had left behind: an old, black-bound ability book. A strange one, at that. Crafted in the style of the infamous book Demon Lin's collection. From that day on, Kai asked himself the same question over and over again. Why did my parents have to go to war in the first place? He often wished they'd left him something more meaningful, maybe a photograph or a memory, anything other than this damn book. Because no matter how hard he's tried over the years, he's never been able to open it, not even once. It's as if the book is mocking him. Eventually, he gave up on it entirely. He pinned all his hopes on the free ability book he'd get from the academy instead. Looking at the dusty old relic now, Kai mutters to himself, his voice heavy with sorrow. I think I've already started to forget their faces. I just wish I had at least one picture of them left. While drowning in all those negative thoughts, his nose suddenly starts bleeding, right onto the ability book he was holding. He grabs a tissue from beside him and says this isn't the first time he's bled because of all the bullying. That's why, instead of wiping his nose, he focuses on carefully cleaning the book. To his surprise, the book suddenly starts glowing in a strange way, and he mutters to himself that this must mean he's finally about to awaken an ability. Despite how terrified he is, he doesn't resist what's happening to him. A moment later, he screams out loud, saying the book just opened on its own in the weirdest way. Within seconds, the entire book vanishes and turns into energy that flows straight into Kai's head. He screams from the pain, saying he had no idea the process would be this overwhelming. By the end of it, he completely loses control of his body and passes out. The last thing Kai remembers seeing was a screen that said, Vampire System. But honestly, all his eyes could really make out were a few blurry words. He didn't understand any of it. Inside his dreams, we see a few young kids playing soccer together in the street. Kai walks up to them and asks if he can join in for a bit. But the kids completely reject him and tell him to stay away. One of them even says that orphaned kids like him are always poorly raised. That's when Kai starts crying and remembers the voice of his mother calling out to him long ago. But no matter how hard he tries, he just can't picture her face. He was way too young the last time he saw her. Suddenly, Kai wakes up to a loud voice calling his name from outside his room. The voice calling him keeps getting louder, warning that he's going to count to 3, and then he'll break the door down. Kai panics, rushes to open the door, and finds a bald soldier standing there. The man angrily asks him why it took him so long to answer. That bald guy is Sergeant Grave, and he's there to gather the students and escort them to the military academy. Kai quickly dashes to his room and starts stuffing his things into his bags, wondering how the hell he managed to sleep like that, especially when the last thing he remembers is opening the book. He freezes for a second, shocked as it hits him. He actually opened the book, after all those years. But his dumb shock causes his glasses to fall and break. Kai almost breaks down inside, saying to himself that now he won't be able to see anything on his first day at the academy. But everything changes just seconds later when he realizes his vision is perfectly fine now. From downstairs, Grave shouts again, reminding him he's still waiting. He even yells, "If you're not out here in 5 seconds, I'm dragging you out by your underwear." Kai rushes out immediately, but the moment he comes down, Grave scolds him hard, asking if he thinks this is some kind of vacation trip or what. Inside the bus, Kai tries to sit next to Rayleigh, but Rayleigh refuses, telling him the seat's taken and he should find somewhere else. Feeling dejected, Kai searches for another seat, but no matter how hard he looks, he can't find any open ones. Rayleigh notices him still hanging around and tells him to get lost already. Thankfully, a guy sitting in the back calls out to him and says, "Hey dude, there's an empty spot here." Kai heads over and sits next to the guy, who has yellow hair and introduces himself as Leo. Strangely, the moment Kai shakes Leo's hand, a system screen suddenly pops up in front of him, displaying the message, "Ability rejected." Kai stares at the screen, completely confused, and starts wondering what exactly got rejected. He tries pointing it out to Leo, but Leo doesn't seem to see anything. Leo then asks him what kind of ability he has right now. Kai's response shocks him when he says he doesn't have one, he's abilityless. Leo looks at him in disbelief, saying it's the first time he's ever met someone like that. That only makes the sadness in Kai's heart sink even deeper. Grave overhears them and snaps, reminding them loudly that they're heading to a military academy, not some field trip. He warns them that if they keep talking, they'll be punished the moment they arrive. An awkward silence falls between them, and Kai starts thinking deeply about this whole system thing. He wonders if it's somehow related to the ability book he accidentally opened last night. By now, he's figured out that he's the only one who can see this system. It says he's at level 1, with just 10 health points. Kai gets a sudden boost of excitement. Could this mean he finally awakened an ability? The problem is, he still has no idea what his power actually is, or how to use it. Kai starts poking around the system, trying to understand it better. Meanwhile, Leo watches him silently, thinking Kai's just acting weird. While Kai is lost in the system's interface, he suddenly feels the sun's heat beating down on his skin. But it's not just heat, it's like his skin is actually burning, and things are getting dangerous. His system starts flashing warning messages one after another, and his health starts to drop rapidly. Finally, after a few seconds, Kai starts to understand everything, especially when the system tells him that all his stats are reduced by half whenever he's exposed to sunlight. Kai, frustrated, mutters, as if I needed more problems, and starts wondering if this technically means he's now level half, not even level 1. The system explains that all his basic attributes were originally 10, including his health, but under the sunlight's effect, they've now dropped to 5. Kai musters up the strength to stand and quickly shuts the bus window curtain. Instantly, a new message pops up from the system telling him that his health is now gradually recovering. Leo watches him, a bit worried, and asks, "Yo, you okay?" Kai responds, "Yeah, I just didn't sleep well last night." Leo offers him some water and tells him to get a bit more rest. Kai starts drinking from the bottle, but even that moment gets interrupted when the system hits him with another message. He's accidentally triggered a side quest. The quest says, drink 2 liters of water to receive 5 experience points. Grave turns around after hearing the sound of splashing and sees a soaking wet student sitting there all miserable. Naturally, he loses it and yells at the kid to man up already. Meanwhile, the drenched student tries to explain that it was all Kai's fault, but Kai's not even listening. His entire focus is still on the system interface in front of him. After a few tries, he finally figures out how to open the quest window, and inside it, he finds a list of simple daily tasks he can complete to level up. Kai finds it strange since most normal abilities are usually trained through studying the ability book itself and practicing what's inside. But this system? It's completely different. But unlike the others, Kai feels like he's inside one of those fantasy manhwa stories, where the protagonist gets a game-like system. He glances over at Leo, hoping to ask something useful, only to find him fast asleep. Kai sighs to himself, thinking the only real benefit of his ability so far is that his vision's improved. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted when he realizes that all the students have already fallen asleep inside the bus. That's when the system notifies him about a strange substance spreading through the air, one that causes drowsiness. The only reason he's still awake is because the system is helping him resist it. Just then, Grave walks past and says that some students naturally have higher resistance to the sleep gas. He casually slips a hood over Kai's head and tells him not to fight it. It just helps you sleep. Time passes. Kai slowly opens his eyes and finds himself in a place completely different from the bus. Right in front of him is Leo, who casually remarks that he really needed that nap. Leo tells him they've now arrived at the academy, but none of them saw how they got there. Kai looks around and realizes he's part of a small group of 5 students. First is the blonde girl Irene, second is Layla, third is a guy named Peter, and the rest are Kai and Leo. Suddenly, an instructor named Jean appears out of nowhere and tells them to prepare for the start of the evaluation. Beside her is a masked figure who tells the students not to move unless their name is called. First up is Peter. Kai looks on, disheartened, not even sure what his own ability is. Jean asks Peter to state his ability type, category, and current level, but to her surprise, Peter responds with a blank face and says, "I'm one of the abilityless." A failure, apparently. Layla is stunned when she hears that and says it's the first time she's met someone without any abilities. Meanwhile, Kai quietly thinks to himself that he's glad there are other useless people like him. As for Jean, she reassures Peter and tells him that he'll be just fine, because the academy will provide him with a free ability book. Peter lights up with excitement and asks if she's serious, saying he's completely broke. Jean not only confirms it, but she also officially registers him as level 1. Kai notices that all the students are wearing bracelets, and he's surprised. That's when Layla explains everything to him. She tells him that the bracelet stores all their personal information and also displays their points, which act as the Academy's internal currency. Once Peter's evaluation is done, it's Kai's turn, and Jean calls his name. Kai is so overwhelmed he asks himself how he's supposed to get through this situation. But he's forced out of his thoughts when Jean directly asks him what his ability is. Kai wonders why she's even asking when she already has access to his full profile, but still he replies hesitantly, "I don't have an ability." The masked man standing beside Jean pulls out a book and hands it to him, telling him to go study with Peter or something. As soon as Kai touches the book, a system message pops up in front of him. It says he cannot learn any new abilities no matter how hard he tries. Kai remembers hearing something like that before, that every person is only allowed one ability. Technically, he could exchange the book through the system for 10 experience points, but he refuses, because if the supervisors see that he didn't learn the ability in the book, they'll know something's off. And if that happens, it could turn into a big problem. Because of that, Kai finally breaks his silence and asks the supervisors to take the book back, saying he doesn't need it. Jean looks at him in surprise and asks if he's really sure about that, especially since the book is completely free. She tells him that if he passes up this opportunity, he'll have to discover his ability on his own later. But with Kai sticking firmly to his decision, Jean tells him to wait for a moment. She steps aside and contacts headquarters to report the situation. That's when the leader asks her if Kai is one of the pure ones. But Jean replies no. She knows that group relies on advanced spiritual weapons in battle, and Kai clearly doesn't have any weapons on him. After the brief call, Jean walks back and tells Kai to prepare for the test immediately. For this test, he's required to destroy 3 targets as quickly as possible. But the real problem for Kai is that the test takes place under the sun. His vision is blurry, and all his stats are halved because of the sunlight. Not wanting to expose his weakness, Kai tries to push through and begins attacking the targets, while Jean monitors his performance stats. She's stunned when she notices that all of his attributes are stuck at 5 points. He's far too weak. In fact, even the slowest robots manage to injure him like a fool. Jean eventually heads back to the main hall and tells him that the test is over. She officially ranks him as level 1 only. Kai returns to the room, weighed down by the fact that his power completely crumbles under sunlight. After that, Kai steps outside to find a spot with a little shade, trying to stay away from the direct sunlight. Leo joins him and reassures him, saying he'll definitely get stronger over the next 2 years. The reason they're outside right now is because the tests are still ongoing, and it's now Layla's turn. Leo tells Kai that he initially thought Layla was part of the purists. He explains that the purists are regular humans who completely reject the use of supernatural abilities. They believe this whole system of power levels and abilities creates a harmful hierarchy among people. That's why they rely instead on spiritual weapons, just like the one Layla carries. But unlike the purists, Layla actually does have an ability, telekinesis. Jean evaluates Layla as a level 2, which surprises her. She asks Jean how that's possible, especially since she was ranked level 3 back in school. Jean explains that Layla was a level 3 telekinetic, but in the test, she used her fists to destroy several targets. That change in combat style caused the system to reclassify her as level 2. Next up is Irene. Leo taps her on the shoulder to wish her luck, but that only makes her furious. She immediately freezes his hand using her ability and warns him that she was being nice this time, but if he touches her again, she won't hold back. Leo nervously laughs and says she seems strong, especially since people with ice abilities are pretty rare. Meanwhile, Kai advises him to stop touching girls altogether, saying it's rude and inappropriate. Irene soon finishes her test, and Jean announces that she's been ranked as level 5. That makes her the 3rd student so far to reach that level. Kai is surprised and says he always thought Riley was powerful, even though he was just level 4. Meanwhile, Layla motivates herself and says she's going to reach that level very soon. Then finally, it's Leo's turn, and judging by his energy, he seems like someone who loves to fight. But what's really shocking is that Leo uses an ice ability, exactly like Irene's. Not just similar, identical. Jean, however, doesn't care about that at all. The only thing that matters to her is the results shown by the system. And so, she announces that Leo is also ranked at level 5. Excited, Kai tells Leo he's genuinely impressive. He says it's the first time he's ever seen someone who can copy abilities just by touching people. Leo is surprised and asks how Kai figured out the full details of his power from just a single test. Kai replies that back in the bus, Leo looked confused after shaking his hand, probably because he couldn't copy Kai's ability. Then later, Leo touched Irene even though he had no reason to, and now he's using her ability. Kai adds that these clues were more than enough for him to figure out how Leo's ability works. But Leo says it's not as simple as that. Kai just seems a little too smart for his own good. Kai thinks to himself and finally realizes the reason behind the message he got on the bus. The one that said, "Ability activation failed." Then Irene walks up to Leo and bluntly asks if he's one of the originals, people who are born with innate abilities. Leo coldly tells her to guess, and he'll let her know if she's right or wrong. That's enough for Irene. She walks away, saying she needs to stay as cold as her power. With all the tests now complete, our group finally steps into the elevator that will take them into the academy. Kai was amazed by how advanced and high-tech everything was. He had no idea the military academy would be this massive. As soon as they stepped out of the elevator, they heard all the students talking about one thing, their power levels, nothing else. Even old friends were starting to drift apart just because of the level difference between them. That made our main group feel pretty down, since it was clear no one would want to be friends with them now. Then the blue-haired guy from earlier, the one who embarrassed his friend, walked up to Riley when he spotted him. From their conversation, it became obvious that they were classmates back in school. Blue Hair tried to remind Riley of that, but Riley completely ignored him, just because he was only level 3. Kai and Petter quickly realized that even a one-level difference was a big deal to these students. If they wanted to make friends, they'd have to stick to people who were the same level as them, no exceptions. Their thoughts were cut off when Instructor Adele arrived and told everyone to line up. It was time to draw their dorm room numbers for the student housing building. Petter noticed that Leo wasn't with them, so he asked Kai if he had seen him around. Kai guessed Leo was probably busy making new friends, now that he had a high ranking. Then came time to draw numbers. Petter and another student ended up picking the same number, which meant they'd be roommates. But as soon as the other guy realized Petter was only level 1, he wasn't having it. He walked away, swapped numbers with Kai, and said that failures should stick together, since they were both level 1 and could share in all the level 1 activities together or whatever. The guy ran off right after, leaving Kai in shock and Petter in tears. Petter apologized to Kai, saying he was sorry that they ended up as roommates. But Kai just smiled and told him there was no need to apologize or feel bad. He was weak too, just like Petter. Their conversation was cut short when they suddenly heard Leo calling out from a distance. He was shouting, asking who else had room number 23 besides him. When Kai found out he'd be sharing the room with both Leo and Petter, he was overjoyed. Despite the gap in their levels, Leo treated them really well and seemed genuinely friendly. But over in a different part of the academy, we saw two other guys talking. The tall one on the left was confused, wondering how someone had taken his room number from him. He asked his short friend to just point the guy out. He'd go beat him up right away. But the short one quickly stopped him, shocked, and told him the guy who took the room was a level 5, and extremely strong. Back at the student dorms, Leo asked Petter if he wanted to go for a walk. But Petter declined, saying he needed to stay in and study his new ability carefully. So Leo turned to Kai instead and asked where he wanted to go. Kai said he was hoping to visit the library to look up some information. When they got there, Kai was surprised to see how many students were studying so seriously. But something felt strange. He could see everyone's mouths moving, but he couldn't hear a single word. Leo noticed Kai's confusion and explained that this was a private academy, not a public one. It made sense Kai didn't know how the library worked. Each table in the library had its own magical device that activated a personal soundproof barrier. That's why everything looked normal, but sounded completely silent inside. After they sat down, Leo noticed the huge pile of books in front of Kai and asked him what they were for. Kai explained that he just wanted to learn more about the different types of abilities, since he never got the Academy's free ability book. Leo chuckled and said he thought Kai might have been part of the Purifiers organization. But now, it looked like he was just scared of becoming a military recruit. Kai raised an eyebrow and asked what he meant. So Leo explained the truth behind the free books. The military never gave out powers for free. Anyone who received their ability from a military-issued book would be obligated to serve. Basically, they'd have to follow orders in the future, no questions asked. Even though Kai felt bad for his friend Petter, he tried to shift the conversation. He looked at Leo and asked if he'd ever heard of an ability that actually made someone weaker under the sun. Leo laughed and said there was no way an ability that dumb could exist in the real world. After hours of flipping through books, Leo eventually fell asleep. Meanwhile, Kai kept reading but still couldn't find a single clue about his ability. Frustrated, he decided to head upstairs, to the second floor, where the fiction and mythology section was. The first book he opened was about a dragon that turned into a human. He immediately shut it and muttered that this was a waste of time. There's no way his ability would be hidden in some fantasy story. Then he opened a second book. This one was about vampires. From it, he learned that vampires had multiple abilities. Kai held the book for a moment, then put it back down sadly. They were way too powerful compared to him. The only thing they seemed to have in common was their weakness to sunlight. But then something strange happened. The system suddenly made a sound and popped up a message. Kai looked to the side and was completely shocked to see it say, "You've gained 10 experience points for gathering information about your system." His hands began to tremble, and fear took over his entire body. That's when Kai finally realized it. He was a vampire. He kept asking himself how, out of all the abilities in the world, he ended up with something this terrifying. How did he get a mythical power like that? Time passed quickly after that moment, and soon the sun was rising on a brand new day. Back in the dorm, Leo had just woken up. He stretched and yawned, wondering where that sneaky Kai had disappeared to. He figured he probably didn't get enough sleep himself and decided to go back to bed. Meanwhile, Kai was still in the library, specifically on the second floor. He'd completely lost himself in all the fantasy books about vampires. And after reading so much, the system sent him a new message. He was now eligible for a new quest. But what shocked him the most was the quest itself. The system asked him to drink human blood. Kai left the library in a daze. The system had said the quest was optional, yet in every single story he'd read, vampires would die if they didn't drink human blood. Still, Kai didn't feel like rushing it. He figured he was already growing stronger every day, just by doing the easy daily missions. At this pace, he'd reach the next level in just 3 weeks, and without taking any major risks. But suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice. It was Petter, crying and shouting in pain. Kai looked ahead and saw someone violently beating him up, apparently because Petter had accidentally bumped into the guy while walking. The blonde guy refused Petter's apology and told him that if he really wanted forgiveness, he had to pay up. Meanwhile, Kai checked the guy's status through his bracelet and realized he was only level 2. Petter quickly replied that he didn't have any money. He was just a broke level 1 student. But the bully just kept yelling louder and louder. Kai was surprised. Why is he acting so tough? Level 2 isn't even that strong, he thought. Without wasting another second, Kai rushed forward and elbowed the guy right in the back. Then, with a smirk, he said sarcastically, "Oops, I slipped." The bully hit the ground hard and immediately snapped at Kai, asking if he was blind or just plain stupid. Kai replied coldly, "I'm definitely stupid. I slip all the time." By now, the blonde guy had already scanned Kai's level using his bracelet, and once he saw it, his whole tone changed. He laughed and said he'd just beat up both Kai and Petter at the same time. Then he gave them one final offer: "I'll let this go, if you pay me compensation." Kai glared at him and answered calmly, "I don't like bullies like you." Right then, the system popped up with a new message. It asked Kai if he wanted to activate combat mode. And not just that, it even gave him a side quest: defeat the target and earn 50 experience points. Kai's eyes lit up. He only needed 100 XP to level up, so this was the perfect chance. The bully activated his ability, which let him partially transform into a tiger with powerful claws. He charged straight at Kai with lightning speed, but Kai was now in combat mode. Thanks to that, he managed to block the incoming attack and land a powerful counterpunch, sending the guy flying backward. In this state, he wasn't just some regular student anymore. He was using the true strength of a vampire. The blonde guy was stunned. He kept asking himself how someone at level 1 could possibly have that much power. But then he figured, maybe Kai's strength stat alone was at level 2. On the other side, Kai was gripping his arm tightly, still hurting from the last blow. He remembered that Layla's strength was only 8 points, and even that made her level 2. So if his base strength was 10, at least when the sun wasn't weakening him, then that meant he was probably level 2, maybe even level 3. Kai charged straight toward the blonde guy again. His current goal wasn't to win, it was to stall for time. He already knew he couldn't beat him right now, not with his current stats. But if he could just hold out a little longer. Meanwhile, the blonde guy slashed Kai again and smirked. So I was right after all. All your stats are level 1, except strength. That one's clearly at level 2. At that moment, Kai's system popped up with a barrage of warnings. Warning, HP critically low. Current HP, 1%. One more hit may result in death. Kai held on, teeth clenched. He knew the sun was almost down. If he could just hang in there a few more seconds. Then came the next strike from the blonde guy, so strong it triggered a blast of dust and force. Petter screamed Kai's name in panic. But once the dust cleared, everyone stood frozen in shock. Kai was still standing. He had blocked the blow, with nothing but his bare hands. He looked the blonde guy dead in the eyes and smirked. You've been beating the hell out of me all this time, but now it's my turn. The blonde guy backed up slightly and stuttered, wait, hold on. But it was too late. Kai's punch slammed straight into his chest. Then another. Punch after punch landed, fast, heavy, and merciless, while Petter stood there, wide-eyed and speechless at what he was seeing. Just moments ago, Petter had watched Kai getting beaten to a pulp, his body covered in bruises and cuts. And now, everything had flipped in seconds. Kai was the one dishing out the punches, even though the blonde guy was clearly higher in level. Kai looked down at his own hands and smiled. So this is the power of a vampire, he muttered to himself. I've always wanted to feel it. Right then, his system popped up with a notification. XP, 65 out of 100. Even more surprising, he unlocked a new skill, Inspect, as a reward for completing the mission Defeat the Bully. Kai could barely believe how quickly things were turning around for him, but his thoughts got interrupted. Hey, look at him, make sure he's not dead, Petter shouted, clearly shaken. Kai glanced at the unconscious blonde guy and reassured him, relax. I'm not strong enough to actually kill someone. Petter was still flustered, but Kai ignored it and decided to test out his new Inspect skill on him. At the moment, he could only see Petter's remaining HP, blood type, and his ability. Since Petter had no ability at all, Kai switched his focus and used Inspect on the blonde guy instead, someone who had the transformation ability. He figured that as he leveled up, he'd probably be able to access even more detailed stats. Then a strange thought crossed Kai's mind. I wonder, does blood taste different depending on the blood type? He quickly shook the thought off and reminded himself, I'm human, not a vampire. Still, the scent of blood was strong, dangerously tempting. Thankfully, Petter broke the tension. Let's get out of here before someone shows up. Kai agreed and followed along, but as they walked away, he couldn't take his eyes off the trail of blood behind them. On the way back to the dorms, Petter noticed the wounds all over Kai's body and suggested going to the infirmary. But Kai refused. They're just surface wounds, he said casually. Nothing serious. But then, Kai looked down at his arm and saw something strange. His wounds were healing on their own. Of course, he didn't want Petter to notice what was happening, so he quickly told him, hey, I'll catch up later. I'm going to the infirmary anyway. Petter offered to go with him, but Kai shook his head. Nah, you go ahead and check in with Leo. Let him know we're fine. Once Petter was out of sight, Kai glanced back at his arm, and just like that, the wounds were completely gone. The system popped up right away with a message. Nothing comes for free. Your healing ability has increased your hunger. As always, Kai completely misunderstood the system's warning. All this hunger from healing? Man, I gotta eat something. Without thinking too much, he made his way to the dining hall, stomach growling louder by the second. Meanwhile, inside the training hall, Layla had just finished a solo session. She wiped her sweat and turned, only to see Kai walking in. She quickly stepped aside, hiding herself. What's he doing here? He's so weak. Is he really planning to train? Curious, she decided to stay and watch silently. Kai, unaware of her presence, walked straight to the system panel and activated the medium difficulty trial mode. Layla rolled her eyes. Seriously? This loser still thinks he belongs here? There's no way he's even properly level 1. But then, in the blink of an eye, Kai charged at the first target, and with a single punch, knocked it flat to the ground. Layla's eyes widened in disbelief. The system had displayed that the dummy's strength was 10 points. And for Kai to drop it so easily, that means his strength is even higher than mine. He might actually be level 3, not even level 2. Layla's shock only grew stronger when Kai moved on to the agility test. With a single fluid motion, he took down 2 targets at once. Her brain almost short-circuited. Is he hiding his true power? But why would someone like him do that? It doesn't even benefit him. The next morning, we head to the Academy's cafeteria to witness the daily struggles of the Level 1 students. Yeah, I'm talking about those poor guys just trying to enjoy their first real breakfast inside. Problem is, as soon as they spot an empty table and approach it, a Level 3 student cuts them off. He casually drops his bag on one of the chairs, silently telling them, "This spot's taken." The 2 students walk away, clearly upset, but not Petter. He's used to this kind of treatment by now. Petter looks over at Leo and asks if he really wants to sit with them, since he could easily sit anywhere and people would flock to him just because of his high level. But Leo quickly shuts that down. "Don't ever bring that up again. I don't care about levels. You guys are my friends." End of story. While they're chatting, we see Layla sitting alone outside the cafeteria as well. Apparently, she's doing it on purpose, still keeping her eyes on Kai. And finally, the first lecture of the term begins. It's theory class, taught by instructor Adele, and today's topic is all about the primordials. As Adele explains that humanity's abilities originated from the primordials, Kai isn't really paying attention. Instead, he's deep in thought, wondering something about Leo. Can Leo actually enhance the abilities he copies? Or does he just replicate them as is? Out of curiosity, Kai decides to use his inspection skill on Leo, hoping to learn something new. But what he sees completely stuns him. The system says, "No ability detected." Kai wakes Leo up on purpose. He wants to ask him something important. "Hey, can you still use Aaron's ability?" Leo shakes his head. "Nope. Any skill I copy only lasts for 1 day. If I want to use it again, I'd have to touch her like I did before the exam." Then he adds with a sigh, "Honestly, I've got a bit of a problem right now. You 2 don't even have abilities yet, so I've got nothing to copy from my own roommates." Right then, Kai's stomach growls loudly. Leo raises an eyebrow. "Wait, how are you still hungry after all that food earlier?" Kai doesn't respond, because he doesn't know the answer himself. But the system does. Warning, hunger continues to rise. After class ends, our heroes step out together. Leo splits off and says he'll catch up later. He just needs a bathroom break. As Kai and Petter head down the hall, they spot 3 students walking up the stairs. The 3 are deep in conversation. Apparently, Riley has been bullying them, demanding 50 points every week. Among them is the blonde guy Kai fought earlier. Blonde glances their way briefly. Petter instantly panics. Hey, is he bringing friends to get revenge? But on the other side, Blonde is clearly avoiding eye contact with Kai. He's too scared to even look his way. His 2 friends, though, they're excited because they've spotted 2 level 1 nobodies. They walk over with smug grins and say, "We'll keep it simple. Just give us 10 points right now." They add, "Don't worry, we're being generous. We know you guys are broke." Petter nervously tells the bullies, "There's no way I can pay that. 10 points is my entire monthly allowance." But Kai, he just stares at them, calm and bold. "I'm not giving you anything," he says flatly. Blonde guy tries to step in and calm his friends down. He clearly doesn't want another beating. "Guys, let's just go," he pleads. But it's too late. Leo shows up. With a sly grin, he offers, "I can lend you the points if you want, but just so you know, the interest will be brutal." The 3 bullies instantly panic. "And no thanks. We're good. Really, we've changed our minds." They try to run, but Leo grabs them by the collars. "Whoa, what's the rush?" he smirks. "No need to leave so fast." Just then, a voice calls out to Leo from behind. "What are you doing to my guys?" The one who spoke is named Mono, and standing beside him is Riley, a level 4 student. Kai immediately tenses up. There's something off about this guy. His aura feels overwhelming. Kai tries to use his system scan skill, but it fails. The level gap is too wide. That's when Kai notices the bracelet on Mono's wrist, and he freezes. Level 6. Kai gulps. He knows how huge the difference between levels can be. Even a fight between level 5 and 6 wouldn't be close. Mono would destroy Leo. Leo steps back, letting go of the bullies as he faces Mono. Mono waves his hand toward his goons and says, "Forget it. Just leave." Leo figures that's the end of it and turns around to walk away with the others. But Mono stops them with a loud voice. "You level 1 peasants," he sneers. "When you see someone like me, you salute." Mono's words push Leo over the edge. He turns around sharply and asks, "What do you want from us exactly?" Mono answers calmly, "No need for this to become a problem. I just came to warn you." He smiles. "There's a rumor going around that you've been hanging out with level 1 kids." Though his tone is polite, his words cut deep. "You know how it is. Love makes people blind. Can't even tell the difference between strong and weak anymore." He keeps talking. "But see, Leo, your actions are messing with the Academy's hierarchy. If low-level students start thinking they're actually strong, they'll begin acting too familiar with higher-ranked ones. And that, I won't allow." He stares coldly. "The strong are the only ones who deserve to survive in this world," he says. "But for now, I'll allow the weak to live, because I know the next war is coming, soon. And when it does, all those low-ranked insects will be wiped out. This world will be clean again." That last word, war, triggers something inside Kai. Memories flash in his mind. Back when intelligence officers came to his house. Back when they told him his family had died, in that very war. Kai's combat instinct activates automatically. He lunges at Mono, pure rage in his eyes. But Riley steps in. With almost no effort, he blocks the strike. He charges his hand with ki and slams his fist into Kai's chest, sending him flying back, and nearly slamming into Petter as well. Riley smirks. "Did you forget I've hit you before?" Mono just laughs and points at Leo. This is exactly what I meant." Leo refuses to just stand there and watch. Without hesitation, he charges straight at Mono. But unfortunately, Mono dodges his attack with ridiculous ease. Leo quickly glances back to check on Kai, relieved he's still conscious. But deep down, one question keeps echoing in his head. How am I supposed to beat someone like Mono? Kai, too, reflects on the situation. This is my fault, he thinks. Because of my stupidity, I dragged Leo into this mess. He knows Leo doesn't even have a copied ability right now. He's relying solely on physical strength. But then, surprisingly, Mono turns his back. He starts walking away and says coldly, "I didn't come here to fight. I just wanted to give you a warning, Leo. If you keep doing what you're doing, I'll kill you." He pauses. "Remember where you are. This is a military academy. Here, it's survival of the fittest. If someone dies in a fight, no one's gonna care.